Welcome to Faith and Culture with Pastor Dave, a podcast where we answer your spiritual questions and address cultural events.
All right. Thanks for tuning into the podcast today. Great to have you with me. So today we're going to answer 9 questions. 9 questions came in this past Sunday, or 9 texts came in. Some of them have multiple things going on, I suppose, but 9 big questions we're going to answer. Every Sunday I let people text in questions about the sermon or about anything on their mind. That happened this past Sunday like it does every week, but last Sunday I didn't have time at the end of the sermon to answer some of the questions because sermon was a little bit beefy, and it's on the prodigal son. You want to go check it out if you want to. WSNAS.org, you can hear the whole thing there. But today we're going to answer the questions that came in. Now, 4 of the questions are not related to the sermon. 5 of them are. And I want to take these 4 non-related questions first, and then we'll get to the ones specific to the sermon on the prodigal son in Luke chapter 15. And by the way, if you're listening, do me a favor right now, click like or share or leave a review real quick, whatever you can do to help me get the word out. I'm trying to help as many people as I can know the gospel in this fashion, and you're sharing it or liking it or leaving a positive review, whatever you can, helps get the word out, and I would appreciate you doing so right now. Again, thanks. But let's dive in. This is great first question. Here it is. Do you think honoring our bodies biblically points us to more towards natural remedies and lifestyle stewardship, or can modern medicine also be a healthy and faithful choice? More specifically, here it goes. How should Christians think about things like Ozempic and other medications that address problems often tied to lifestyle rather than genetics? At what point is medicine wise stewardship, and at what point does it risk becoming a substitute for self-control and a deeper lifestyle change? So make sure you know what we're talking about here. Ozempic specifically is a medicine that was created to help with diabetes, and they've discovered this side effect that it helps people lose weight, or I guess it helps people not have cravings. I don't know exactly the details, but it's a real huge craze right now. Lots of people are using it, lots of celebrities and people are using it simply to lose weight. It's a pill that gives you self-control, I suppose. So my short answer to this, the short answer is no. As a Christian, you should not be using Ozempic or any other medication as a substitute for spirit self-discipline in your life. Okay, so that's a short answer. But let me dive into this because there's some nuances here I want to share with you. First, we need to know this, that science and medicine is good and is a common grace for people. Now, what a common grace means that God gives certain things that are grace-driven things that are for everybody, whether you're a Christian or not. The sunshine is a grace that God gives for everybody. You don't have to be a Christian to experience sunshine, okay? And medicine is also that thing. You don't have to be a Christian to get that. It's a common grace. We call it common grace. It's given by God. Lots of scientific advances are given by God to smart and wise people that are for our benefit, okay? Like the development of penicillin. What an awesome thing that God enabled us to find that so we can curb off some infections. And like I've had my hip replaced. I had my right hip replaced when I was 49 years of age because of arthritis and whatever. And God gave somebody along the path the ability to figure that out, and I'm the beneficiary of that. So there are good uses of science and medicine that we as Christians know are from God, and it's awesome, okay? And medicine is not inherently wrong, okay? But Ozempic for weight loss, in my opinion, is not one of those times, okay? Because I think there's a difference between a medicine that helps you in a way you couldn't otherwise help yourself, or a medicine that takes away from your ability to be a steward of your own body. Here's what I mean. So they're referring to a passage from 2 Timothy. This is a great passage where it says, For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. Okay? So self-discipline is a gift from God that we need to enact and grow in to be stewards of our own body. You should be a steward of your body. You should take care of your body. We should be stewards of all things that God gives to us, okay? Stewardship of your finances, stewardship of your family, stewardship of the world, stewardship of your body. We care about that, okay? And you have to do that. You can't look for shortcuts in doing that. The Spirit of God gives us a spirit of self-discipline. Now, I know self-discipline is incredibly hard. We all know that it's incredibly hard. It takes a lot of work to develop self-discipline, and you can actually lose it in a moment, but it's hard to develop that self-discipline. Taking Ozempic to help you lose weight as opposed to growing and enacting spirit-led self-discipline will not help you develop discipline. Medical solutions should not replace discipline when lifestyle is the root issue. So again, I'm not picking on everybody here because I know there are lots of people who are in different scenarios and I don't know all of them. I just know I'm going to go from a generic general principle. If somebody doesn't enact discipline in their eating life, they will gain weight. We all would. It's a struggle. It's hard, okay? And especially with the dietary, choices that we have. If you don't enact self-discipline, you'll gain weight. That's a lifestyle issue. Taking a pill to curb that may seem attractive, but it actually isn't really dealing with the root issue of the lifestyle issue. So if somebody goes off Ozempic and hasn't really developed self-discipline in their life, they're just going to return back to weight loss. I know people who've been on these diet programs and diet things, and they found help with them, but when they go off those programs and stop paying for the help, they go right back to their old ways. I mean, we all deal with that. So it's a common thing, okay? But using medication to bypass lifestyle change is a manner in which you avoid responsibility of your own body. Our culture, you know what our culture wants? Our culture wants results without sacrifice. And I'm not a fan of that. I don't think the Bible is as well, because if you shortcut any area in your life, shortcuts are maybe good when you're driving, but not when you're trying to be a disciplined person. If you take a shortcut in your life, in this area, it will spill over into other areas of your life. Growing in self-discipline not only helps you with the maintenance of your body, but helps you in every other area of your life, with money management and management of your language, or your thought life, or your sleeping patterns, or your work patterns. We need self-discipline in all areas of our life. So you've got to develop it. You can't look for workarounds. And it is really, really hard, okay? Now, let me tell you this. I saw something this past week. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. I'm not overstating this. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in a marathon. I'm a marathon runner, okay? And a marathon is hard. It's 26.2 miles. I've done over 100 of these. They are very, very hard. They're not easy for anybody unless you're from Kenya, I suppose. I don't know. Those guys make it look easy. But it's hard. People don't run marathons because they are easy and just a Saturday stroll. It's a major accomplishment, and it takes massive doses of self-discipline to finish a marathon and to train for a marathon. Well, the LA Marathon this past week in Los Angeles did something very, very California and very stupid. It's just the dumbest thing, and it's making the rounds in the marathon world. Let me show it to you. I'm going to put it on the screen here, and then I'll read it to you. Here's what it says. Now, this is direct. See that shit right there? I'll read it to you if you're not watching. If you're just listening, I'll read it to you. It says here, this is direct from their website. Having a tough day, here's what it says. Having a tough day, if you're having a tough day, like this is during the marathon, and want to end your race before 26.2, you can choose to take the turn at mile 18 and head into the finish line early. You do not need to notify anyone of your decision, and you can opt out and take this route at any time. This option is available for this year only, and you get the medal for finishing a marathon. Now, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. As a marathon runner, I'm completely against this. Whoever came up with this idea should be fired. They should get rid of this person. This is ridiculous. What they're saying is, if you're having a tough day, literally, they're saying if you're having a tough day, if it's hard, and it is hard, it's supposed to be hard. If it's hard and you get to mile 18 and you feel like you just don't have anything else, you can quit and we'll still give you the finish medal. That's ridiculous. You should not get a finisher's medal at mile 18. Now, they could have done something different and said, we have a finisher medal for the mile 18. It's not the full medal. You get a You get a different lesser medal for, all you losers. But you don't get the full medal. You got to finish the thing, okay? But that is a good illustration of what I think just generally people are doing in life. They want results without sacrifice. They want to look like they finished a race without actually finishing the race. And I think that's ridiculous. And the truth is, I think if people are using Ozempic or other things in a way that it's not perhaps intended by God when he gave it to people to develop, if we're using it for management of self-discipline, I don't think that's the best use, okay? Now, maybe there's some examples that I'm unaware of that it works. I don't know all things. I just know, generally speaking, for Christians, for people, if you're trying to have manufactured self-discipline, it is not going to work for the rest of your life, okay? Because just like a marathon is hard, life is hard. Finances is hard. Faith is hard. You can't quit early. You can't look for shortcuts. You can't look for easy outs. And you got to develop self-discipline. So a couple things I want to say about this. Just when it comes to food, I've thought about this. I really thought about this after our kids are grown. Now our kids are all young adults, and they're not obese or anything. They do great. So this is why I guess I can think about this. But when they were kids, we did what most everybody does. It doesn't seem like every meal you feed your kids is comfort food. Like you want them to eat so they don't die. So you feed them food that they want. And there's a lot of pizza and fried chicken nuggets and mashed potatoes and macaroni and cheese. And all that's good for kids because their metabolism burns that pretty quick and they're running around all day, But we feed them pancakes and cinnamon rolls and ice cream. They eat all this comfort food. And we're accidentally training them that every food should be a comfort meal. And then they get older and they struggle with making that change in adulthood because that's what they've been trained up to do. And so I guess what I'm thinking is a good parental move is when kids are little to teach them that not every meal is about comfort food. Not every meal should have carbs. Not every meal is about enjoyment, although I get it. But sometimes we just need to teach our kids that we need fuel to survive. We need baked chicken and broccoli, which it's fuel, but it's not always to make you happy, but it makes you keep cranking in life. I don't know what to do with all that, but something to think about if you have little kids, to teach them that so you can help them when they're adults have a little bit more self-discipline in their life. By the way, let me tell you the formula I have for developing self-discipline. Now, I'm a person who has self-discipline, but I wasn't born with it. I've grown into it for sure. And one of the things early on that helped me was sports, for sure. The discipline of sports. I did sports year round. These days, it seems like kids focus on one sport, like baseball, and they're in batting practice all winter long, and then spring baseball, and then they play in the summer and fall ball, and that's fine. But when I was a kid, it was seasonal sports. In the fall, I played football. In the winter, I played basketball. In the spring, I did baseball. In the summer, we did baseball and swimming, different things year round. And those sports combined with homework in life just kind of helped me develop a sense of self-discipline. But I do have a formula that works for any area in your life that you want to develop. And again, I didn't come up with this necessarily. I've tweaked it to my own liking, my own taking. But you've heard me tell that I've got this format called head, heart, hands. Head, heart, hands. Head is right thinking, orthodox. Heart is right motives or orthopathy. And hands is right doing or orthopraxis. Head, heart, hands, okay? So if you want to develop self-discipline, think about it this way. Head is like the stuff you learn about. So read about self-discipline. Listen about self-discipline. Listen to what I'm telling you about self-discipline in this moment. Listen to podcasts. Listen to books, Get information in your head. Get the right thinking about stuff in your life, the right thinking about self-discipline. Then the heart thing for this specifically is be with people who are self-disciplined. Be around people who are self-disciplined. You'll become like them, learn from them, grow from them, experience life with them, okay? Go out to eat with somebody who's self-disciplined and see how they order, okay? And then lastly is hands. Do hard things. Do a marathon and actually do the whole thing. Do 26.2 miles or do something hard in your life. Continue to develop discipline or fast a meal or all week long have no carbs for lunch. Develop self-discipline because it will benefit you in every area of your life. So that's a great question. Hope you'll continue to listen, but if you quit right now, I don't blame you. That's interesting. That's good stuff. But keep listening, please. Here we go. This one's about money. How do you think A biblical approach to budgeting should actually look in practice if we're trying not to waste the resources God has given us. What kind of framework or game plan would help a family faithfully steward their finances so that over time they're not only stable themselves, but also in a position to help others? Almost like becoming a modern day kinsman redeemer when someone in their community is in need. I'm looking for a specific formula or plan. All right. I guess this probably is somewhat related to the Sermon Sunday, because the prodigal son is somebody who took all his wealth and went and squandered it. So it came up for them, the idea of like they want to make sure they're budgeting their finances well, which we all should. Again, this is back to stewardship. The first question with Ozempic was about stewardship of your body. This is about stewardship of your finances. And I think the primary reason we get into trouble, if I can just boil it all down to something kind of simplistic, although I know it's complex, is that we do things backwards. Okay? The biblical method for finances is give, save, live, in that order. Give 10% to God, save 10%, live off the rest. That's the biblical format. But what do? We do the opposite. We live first, we pay our bills and expenses first, then we save if we have some, then we might give if there's any left over. Okay, and we typically get into trouble getting things backwards. Now, I'm talking with a young man right now who just got a new job and a decent raise in their life. And I think the money is burning a hole in their pocket, like it does most people. And I'm telling them about this principle. It's called Parkinson's Law. Have you heard of Parkinson's Law? It's not related to Parkinson's disease, okay? Parkinson's Law. It's a guy named Parkinson who wrote this up. And the principle is this, that he noticed that when people would get raises or new jobs and they would go up in their income, as typically is supposed to happen in your life, and you would think when that happens, like life gets better because you have a little more discretionary income and more to save or give, but he doesn't. He noticed that people's expenses rise to meet their income. In that order, it's backwards. So he would notice that if you got like a $10,000 raise one year, that by default, your expenses would rise to meet that. You would have you would just let your expenses grow to meet that. And you would always be in the cycle of never getting ahead, never prospering. That's Parkinson's Law. It's getting things backward, okay? When ideally, what we all hope for is when we get a raise or a bonus or a new job, new income, that new income would give us relief and would give us, cushion and margin. But Parkinson noticed that it doesn't, because we don't typically budget for it or plan for it or live biblically. We let our expenses rise to meet our income. So you might start off your career making, $40,000 right out of college. I don't know if that's what you make. $40,000 out of college, and you're going to real quickly have $40,000 of expenses. 5 years later, if your income grows to like $75,000, what are you going to do? Your expenses are going to raise to $75,000. This is going to happen your whole life, Parkinson says, if you don't see it coming and manage differently. And those who do well financially and those who prosper financially manage this well. And I'm talking about your average person, not the person who's an entrepreneur and sells a business for millions of dollars and has a big payday, or somebody who gets like an inheritance, or I'm not talking about the anomalies, okay? I'm just talking about all of us normal people who just are making an income. You can live prosperously, you can do well if you follow budgetary guidelines, okay? So with that in mind, the very last part of their question was, I'm looking for a specific formula or plan. Here it is. Are you listening? You might want to grab a piece of paper and a pencil, because there is a formula, a plan, percentages that help you do this well. I'm about to give it to you, okay? I did not develop this. This is from Dave Ramsey. I'm a Dave Ramsey listener. I don't know that I'm a hardcore fan, nothing like that, although I rarely hear him say anything that I disagree with. But I don't listen to him every day, so just be careful about that, okay? But again, he's got some fantastic stuff, and you can't argue with this. They study millionaires, they study money. You've got to listen to people who know what they're talking about. And you really need to listen to people who have money to learn how to have money, okay? And this is his guidelines, his principle, and it's kind of in this order to begin with. Remember the biblical principle? Give, save, live? This is how he works. 10% giving to start off with. You start off giving 10% of your way. That's biblical. That's what we aim for. I know that's difficult. That's a question for a different topic, but you start 10% giving. Then you start, number 2 is 10% saving, okay? You want to save money. One of the eighth one of the world is compounding interest. When you save money, it will add up over time massively, okay? So do that, okay? So 10% giving, then 10% to saving, then 25% should be to your housing. So your budget should don't go over in your mortgage or rent 25% of your take-home pay, okay? This is how people get house poor, because they buy a house that they can't afford, and you can probably get a mortgage for that, unfortunately, or they rent something they really can't afford because they want something nicer, and understand we want that. But if you break some of these rules, you will struggle in your stewardship and management of the things God gives you, okay? As a matter of fact, if you break that rule and the ones I'm getting ready to tell you, you won't be able to do the first things of give 10% and save 10%. So 25% to housing, 5% to utilities, which means like your housing, mortgage, utilities, all things together would be 30%. You don't want to break that. That's your guideline. And you probably have a little wiggle room, a couple percentage points, to be fair in all these, okay? But it's got to be 100% total, okay? So 5% to utilities, which is tough because, sometimes gas goes up and electricity goes up, and there's that. 10% to food, okay? And you want to make sure you're not eating out excessively or spending too much, and that's difficult because, man, even the two of us, it's just two of us right now. Erica went to the grocery the other day. She came home, I think, with like 4 bags. It was $190. And we're like, what? How is this that expensive? Which is for the two of us, But food, 10%. 10% for transportation. That includes your gas and your car. I'm a fan of no car payments, okay? And I know that's difficult to get to, and that's a question for another day as well. How do you get to that point? It took us a long time to get there, but we're there, and there's freedom in having no car payment. Man, I would rather, and I taught my kids that. My kids all have paid for cars. They don't have any car payments from what they have. So car payments. Anyway, so 10% transportation, 5% health insurance. Again, that's difficult because health insurance is insanely expensive, but you have a little wiggle room there. 5 to 10% is probably the rule. 5% or so for personal spending. This is your Amazon shopping. This is clothing. This is, going out for a candy bar during the day. Whatever, 5% for recreation, going out to the movies, going out to, whatever. And 5% just miscellaneous, which comes up, okay? And there, you wanted some principles. There they are. Now, again, like I always say when I'm preaching, my job is to tell you the truth. Your job is to make a decision. If you want to be a good steward, I would say enact what I just told you, okay? Because Ramsey and their group has found that this works. It works to help you have financial peace. That's what they talk about. And it helps you to work towards prosperity. It helps you to ward off emergencies. You can fund them when they come up. And it helps you to be a good manager of what you have biblically, so that, like the question says, they can help other people when the time comes. All right, next question. Here we go. Do you think Christians should give to panhandlers? Is it a responsibility to evaluate the legitimacy of their situation, or are we called to respond with generosity whenever someone asks for help? Now, I'm not sure I'm going to really solve this for you, because this is so complex. We all struggle with this, right? Maybe some people don't. I don't know, but I have talked about this with so many people that it's complex, because we know that often, beggars and panhandlers, there are some legitimate modes of that, but it also includes a lot of addiction and systemic problems. It just does. A couple years ago, we were in San Francisco. I was doing a marathon triathlon there, one of the world's greatest, called Escape from Alcatraz, doing that. And while we were there, we drove around the city several times, just checking out the sights. And this is where the homeless epidemic is skyrocketed. And it's street after street after street, block after block after block for a long period of time of homeless people everywhere begging. And it is overwhelming to think about that. Okay. Now, here where we're at in Indianapolis, you see it, but not like that, at least not where I'm at. But you do see quite often in our area somebody on the corner of the street begging. I saw it this morning. There's an intersection over here that always has somebody at it. And I think Christians wonder about this all the time. Should we give to those people or shouldn't we? It's very complicated. We think things like, what if What if they take the money and they buy drugs? Or what if they buy alcohol with it? Or what if they're just a scammer and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars doing this? Or, why don't they have a job? Why aren't they working? And those are all legitimate questions for sure. But I think this question is complex, but I think we have to balance two themes here when it comes to addressing this or participating or not. Number one is generosity towards the poor. You can read Proverbs 19:17 or Luke 10 about this. We should be generous towards the poor. The Bible's like uber clear about that, right? You can't deny that God wants us to take care of the poor and the widowers, and obviously it's huge, okay? It's a biblical thing, okay? We got to be generous towards the poor, but we also have to hold up responsibility and work. We can't let those out of the picture, okay? That's 2 Thessalonians 3:10 or other passages where it says if you don't eat, you don't work, okay? Or a man who doesn't provide is like a sinner, okay? So we have to balance those two things, okay? But when you interact with somebody in the street corner, you don't know, right? You assume they're poor because they're panhandling, but you don't know why. Do they have a criminal record and no one will hire them? Or is there a mental illness? Is there a drug addiction? We don't know any of those things. And it does scare us off because I think also in this day and age, scammers are everywhere, right? I mean, yeah, on my phone, most people text me. Sometimes people call me. And you know who most commonly calls me? It tells me scam likely. You get that phone call? It's always like scammers call me all the time on the phone or text. They might text you, and so we're being very conditioned these days to think that there's scammers everywhere. And they are, so it's difficult, okay? But Christians should have a generous heart all the time, mingled with wisdom. Sure, that's where we should be. As a practical note too, I find this interesting. I think one of the reasons most people don't give is they don't have cash. Like we're very much in a digital age, and we don't have much cash anymore. I mean, sometimes we do, but I feel like I rarely have cash. And when I do, it's gone and somebody's taken it or used it someplace. And most of the time I'm using my debit card. And I think if panhandlers start to have like Venmo accounts and GoFundMe's, and that's a problem. That seems like that's weird, But who has cash anyways? Look at this passage from Matthew 5, just to think about it. Jesus is talking about. He's just finished talking in the Sermon on the Mount about. When people ask of you, he says, walk a mile with them, walk the extra mile. If they ask for your coat, give them your tunic too. He's just saying be overly generous. And he says this in Matthew 5:42. Give to the one who begs from you, and do not refuse the one who would borrow from you. Well, that sounds like God would have us give to beggars, I'm not sure all the time. I don't know. I don't have this solved. But it seems like perhaps when you're feeling like, should I give to this person? You need to listen to your conscience, and perhaps it's best at times to err on the side of generosity. I don't know. Maybe don't give them $100 or $500. I don't know. Give them $1 or $2. I don't know. Again, I don't know the quotas. I don't know the answers here. Give them 20. I don't know. Christians should be generous, right? However, I think generosity should help people change their situation. Really, ideally, what we should be doing as Christians is supporting systems that restore people. And if you find yourself heartbroken for people who are begging, which we should, then maybe that should trigger in you something that you should be giving towards organizations or churches or gleaners or other places that are actually dealing with systemic issues rather than momentary relief. And I know both matter, okay? It is possible that you would give to a beggar, panhandler, and they would misuse their money. That's true, okay? But the greater spiritual danger here for you when considering this is the hardening of your heart. The last thing you want to do is become overly hard towards poor people. You want to have a generous and soft heart towards poor people. That's what the Bible says to do. So it's probably better to risk being taken advantage of than be cold towards people in need. Okay, again, I don't know that solved it for you because it's difficult. It's complex and you don't know the story of the person and we don't want to enable people. I get that. But if you're struggling with that, listen to your conscience. And I don't think we ever regret being generous. I think we do regret moments where we didn't take advantage of the chance to be generous. So there's something to think about. Last question that's general, then we'll get into specific things about the sermon, I think, here. This is great. In your podcast last week, you made the claim that people of certain religions don't deserve the civic right to hold office. Could you clarify which religions you believe deserve to be allowed to hold office? Just Christians? Just Protestants? Where's that line and who gets to draw it? That's a great question. Okay, I'm not sure I quite said it that way, but perhaps. Here's what I said, that when we're talking about the Iran, Israel, U.S. war, all this going on, I said I found it very interesting that we're bombing, Islam over there because it's evil and it's an ideology of death and it's demonic. We're bombing them over there, but over here we're electing them, like in Dearborn, Michigan, and New York City mayor. Okay, I think that's a huge hypocrisy. Okay, that does not mean that they can't run. Okay, I think. In America, one of the great things about us is anybody can, in fact, run for office. So I'm not against somebody running for office. I just think we're dumb to elect people from a demonic ideology. Okay, again, this is my take. Okay, actually, I do believe it would be fantastic if every person in office, from president on down to the mayor and city council, were Christian Protestants. Absolutely, I have that bias. Absolutely, I believe that is the best line of thinking for sure. Why would I hesitate on that? Why would anybody hesitate on that? Okay, this goes into a little bit of Christian nationalism. Okay, now let's not get too far with that, because when it comes to Christian nationalism, there's a million different definitions of that, and I'm not talking about that. But at its general core, a nation of Christians is a fantastic idea. I'm 100% for that. Okay, as a matter of fact, if you don't like the idea of a Christian nation, you're going to hate heaven, because heaven's going to be full of Christians who love Jesus, okay? And that's a kingdom of Christians, so we love that. So I think it's wise to have as many of those people involved in politics as can be, okay? I'm not saying that other people can't run, not saying that at all, okay? I just think as a nation, it's just wise to put people in place who love God, who love Jesus. And again, it's hard to know about that. It makes me think a couple years ago, another instance. Do you remember, 2008? It was Mitt Romney versus Barack Obama for the presidency. And I was a Mitt Romney fan, voted for him, but I struggled with that a little bit. I wasn't about to vote for anything on the Democratic Party, to be honest, just to be clear, okay? Not for that party to death at all. But Romney, I struggle with that because he's a Mormon. And Mormonism is, I can't tell you, it's a demonic religion. It is the dumbest religion. It really is. Do you know, let me tell you 4 things that they believe so I can back that up, okay? Number 1, do you know they believe God was once a man, that he was a human who through his works and goodness rose to the level of godhood? That's what they believe. They also believe that humans can become gods. You can get your own planet and be a god. They do believe that. They reject the idea of the Trinity. They believe salvation involves works and temple ordinances. I mean, it is nuts. It is nuts. They were actually expelled from America. They were expelled from America. Utah was not a part of America at that time of history, because their founder was a pedophile and a liar. And they said, "You guys, we don't even want you in America." So they moved to Utah, and then we overtake Utah, and now it's part of America. But and I thought, how can this guy who seems to be so smart believe in that dumb religion? How could that happen? And I struggled with that. But there it is. So I don't know if that makes me a hypocrite or not, but that was our 2 options. So I guess that's what we had to vote for. But here, I just think we as Christians, we as Americans are wise to put good, godly people in leadership, because the Bible says a nation who fears the Lord, repents of their sin, is blessed by God, and that nation will bless the entire world, the entire globe. That matters, okay? All right. Now, let's jump into the questions. These last questions, there's 5 of them, that are specifically related to the sermon on the prodigal sons. Prodigal sons, remember the 2 of them, the younger son who runs away, and the older son who stays and really is not experiencing the grace of his father. He just thinks he's acting like a hired hand from the father, okay? Here's the question. First one. I tend to be a fixer, so I often wrestle with where the line is between loving someone well and interfering with a way that keeps them from learning. How do we discern when to step in and help versus allowing someone to face the consequences of their choice as an actually more loving thing? At the same time, how do we avoid confusing healthy boundaries or letting them learn the hard way without giving up on them entirely? What does it look like to stay loving and supportive without rescuing someone from lessons they may need to learn themselves? So they're obviously referring to the younger son. The story of the prodigal son. The younger son goes off and he spends all his money. He gets a job at a pig slop, in feeding pigs and living with pigs, which is terrible for a Jewish, kosher guy. And it says in there that he comes to his senses, and that's when he comes home. At a certain point, he learned his lesson that this is not working. His plan did not work. So I think they're referring to that. So how do we know the difference between letting somebody learn their lesson or not? Okay. Well, I assume you're probably most able to do this when you're a parent of kids, right? Because you have the most control of them when they're little. They're supposed to obey you, okay? And obviously you want to do loving things for them. You want to protect your kids, but there are also moments where you let them learn the hard way. I think what you got to start this really early. I've told us before that when our kids were little, Erica found this book called Love and Logic Parenting. Maybe you've heard about it. And she kind of enacted that in our life, okay? And it was great. And our kids learned lots of hard lessons that way. And here's how it works. I can be real general about this. So like in winter, I remember the kids still do this. They'd love to wear shorts year round for some reason, right? And it'd be cold, like in November or December, like it's going to be like 40, 38 degrees. I don't know. It's going to be cold, like not shorts weather, right? And so, but the kids would want to wear shorts to school that day, right? And I mean, if it was going to be snowing, Erica would put her foot down, right? But if it was like on the border, she would say, okay, you can wear shorts today, but just so you know, it's going to be cold, okay? And the idea was it gave them some moral agency so they could make choices, and they made the choice to wear shorts. And the hope actually was that they would feel cold during the day because we wanted them to connect the dots that, oh, mom and dad, they're right. And so as they get older, that they would listen. And you know what? That's worked largely. Our kids often call and ask us for advice. And as they get older, they'll probably shift as they get life figured out. But they call and ask for advice because they've learned that mom and dad know a thing or two. Hopefully that we've connected those dots. But to your question, yes, sometimes you have to let somebody learn the hard way. And sometimes you got to protect them from that. And that depends on whether they're your child or they're your parent or a sibling or a friend or coworker. Sometimes you have more control in those relationships than others, okay? Always be asking yourself, if I love this person, how do I stay in their life and protect them but let them learn, okay? Assuming you are in a position to do so. Sometimes love steps in and protects them. It just does. Sometimes love will do that. But sometimes love also has to step back and let somebody face the consequences so that they can come to their senses and lead to change. Okay, the balance is staying relationally present without constantly rescuing somebody from the lessons of life, okay, to teach them. Okay, you got to do that. And I think like we're finding this out that it's when our kids are at the age they are now, the young 20s, this matters a lot because we are in the process of fully letting them go. And it's real easy to step in and give them some money to pick something, give them wisdom. We want to do that, but sometimes we got to say, nope, they got to learn this lesson now. You got to learn this thing now so that we can fully let them go and they can be productive people and good Christians and just like managing life, okay? And that's difficult. So you always got to just be discerning. When should I step in? When should I not? And again, it depends on the relationship. But where it's possible, help people learn so that they too would come to their senses, okay? But protect them when you can. Next question. It seems the older brother, is busy but not concerned about his younger brother. Not being his brother's keeper. How do we get more burden for the lost brothers? Yeah, in the story, the older brother is out working in the fields. He's doing all the chores. While the dad, it sounds like he is out on the front porch. He's looking off for the son to come home. He's concerned about his son. And it almost doesn't sound like in the passage the older son is concerned at all about his brother. Okay? It does sound that way. And he's not. Because the passage is really about the Pharisees and the tax collectors, about the church people and the non-church people. And Jesus is saying, you church people, you're not concerned at all about the lost, and you should be. Okay? So how do we get more concerned? The father was watching all night long for the younger brother to come home. But the younger brother was working. And I think we need to constantly be more like the father. We need to be watching for the lost to come home. The older brother's heart was simply not aligned with the father's heart. This is why I call the parable the prodigal sons. The younger son goes off and squanders his father's money, but the older son stays and squanders his father's grace. He says things like, I've always been out working in the fields for you. I've done everything you've commanded. And it gives us a couple clues there how he feels about the father. He thinks God is somebody to be obeyed, which he is, or to be followed as a master, as opposed to being in a relationship with. So even the older son is home, he's working, he's slaving, but he hasn't really fully taken advantage of the grace of God. And when you let the grace of God really take residence in your heart and mind, and you realize what you've been saved from, and God loves you, and God cares for you, and God has redeemed you, that is the trigger that will make you care about other people. When you realize what God has saved you from, then you will want others to experience that salvation as well. So the key for anybody to begin to worry about lost people is to realize that you were once lost and you've been found. And live in that grace. Don't view God as a taskmaster or a boss who's telling you what to do, but as a gracious Heavenly Father who saved you, and how awesome it is that you have been found. And that will trigger in you the desire to help and think about other people being found. It just will. Okay? Try it. Next question. Last two here. How do you combat bitterness in earthly relationships where you feel justifiable? Like the elder brother. You've done what's right, but the other person can't seem to get their ducks in the row. Okay? Yeah, true. The older brother in the story of the prodigal son he doesn't seem happy that the younger brother is home. I can only imagine the story. Like, the younger brother's been gone for a period of time, and the older brother, he's still at home. He's got to do his chores, and the younger brothers, he's got double duty. He's been left in the lurch, and while his younger brother's out partying, he's got to stay home. He's probably, bitter towards him or regretful towards him, and he's not happy when he comes home. That's the story for sure, okay? But I'm wondering if you're using the right word. Maybe you are. Bitter. So the older brother was bitter to the younger brother. Yeah, I suppose you can make that case. It does sound the case. The answer to bitterness is always forgiveness. Always forgiveness. Bitterness grows when we focus on fairness instead of grace. Because life is not fair. Life is not fair. Fair died in the Garden of Eden. Life is not fair. People experience things differently, get things differently, live differently. Life is not fair, okay? And that's not from God. That's a broken world. That life is not fair. Some people get massive gifts and talents. Others do not. Some people get great good looks and others do not. I mean, I don't know. You could go on and on about this. Life is not fair. When you focus on fairness, you will get bitter. But the antidote to bitterness is forgiveness. The older brother needed to forgive the younger brother and be quick to forgive. And so I think that's the key. In life, if you're bitter towards somebody, it's only hurting you. It's only hurting you. In the prodigal son, the older brother's bitter, but it doesn't affect the younger brother at all. It doesn't bother him at all. He doesn't even know it. It doesn't affect him at all. It's just making the older brother miserable because he's frustrated that things have not been fair. The antidote for that is to forgive quickly. I've learned to do that. It's great. It's fantastic to forgive people quickly because of what it does for you. It frees you up to live in the grace of God. It does. So I would say that's the antidote. Continue to forgive quickly, even if they don't ask for it. Okay? Actually, I got two left. I got two more left. So this is a question that's connected to that. How do you prevent sibling rivalry? That's all it takes. That's a great question. Because in the younger brother and older brother, I guess there was some sibling rivalry there. I guess you can make that case. Or it made him think about this. But sibling rivalry begins at the beginning of the Bible and goes all the way through it. Cain and Abel, there's a rivalry going on there for the love of God. Joseph and his brothers, Joseph and his 12 brothers, that whole thing. They were jealous of him and the rivalry they have. David and his brothers, there was a rivalry there. As a matter of fact, do you know that the entire Iran-Israel conflict that's going on right now and has been for 2,000 years is because of a sibling rivalry? It absolutely is. It all began in Genesis. Going back to Genesis 12, you can dig through it if you want to, read forward from there for a handful of chapters, where God told Abraham that he was going to have a son. God would bless him with a son. He's 75 years old at the time. That's old having a son, but God said, you're going to have a son and many descendants, and they will be my people. Okay? 25 years pass. He's 99 years old when this happens. So 24 years pass, and Sarah, his wife, says, this is clearly not happening with me. I can't get pregnant. Let's let you sleep with the maid. And he does. And he has a baby with Hagar, and that child is Ishmael. And he's 100-year-old when this happens. And then God allows Sarah to be pregnant, and she gives birth to a son named Isaac. Isaac and Ishmael, these two like half brothers here, okay? And this is where the whole conflict began, because God said the promise of God's people in his land will fall on Isaac. And Ishmael, it says, will be a wild donkey of a man, and he will fight against God's people. Okay? And ever since, there's been this sibling rivalry. It's always been the case. It began then, prophesied by God, still continues on today. And even in the end times, it will be the conflict that comes to all culmination of things between these two families. Okay? These two brothers. So, in your life, how do you prevent it? Well, number one, don't sleep with a maid. I would say that. Is that fair? That's funny. Abraham should have never been with Hagar to begin with. Just listen to God. There's start there. But also, I say start early. Start early in your life. If you got kids, especially when they're little, start that point managing that. Because from our experience, we have 3 kids. When they're little, that's when the rivalry is managed best, and they will have sibling rivalry. They will fight against each other. They will fight for mom and dad's attention. It's a thing. It's a thing. But it gets older it gets easier when they get older. Like our 2 boys now, they had rivalry when they were kids, but they're best buddies right now. It's so cool. We love it. We love it. And all 3 of them actually, they hang out together. They love each other, and it is so cool to see them loving each other. But we started early. You got to start early on that. And admittedly, man, we struggled with that when they were little. I mean, we had nobody in our life. Our family was far away, and we were kind of on our own. Even though we had a church, pastors lived differently. We're just kind of, we have to have the answers, and we needed answers for some people. But we struggled with this when the kids were little, fighting against each other. And we noticed the sibling rivalries. I'll give you a silly instance that we noticed this. So we had these pizza plates, okay? We had pizza. We had for the kids, like the plate was in the shape of a slice of pizza, plastic plate in the shape of a slice of a pizza, right? And we had 3 of those. 2 of them were the same, and 1 of them was different. We got them at different times, I guess. Well, I guess we got the first one, and they liked it so much we got 2 more, but they were different. And whenever we had pizza, they would fight for that one plate. And I told Erica, I said, I think at a deep psychological level, unless I'm overthinking this, they want that plate because it's different. And I think at some level, them fighting over that kind of stuff is symbolic, or at a level in which they're fighting for our love. That sibling rivalry is fighting for the father's and mother's love, or the Heavenly Father's love. You know, that's what really all rivalry comes to. That was Cain and Abel's. That God loved Abel's sacrifice more than Cain, it said. And God favored Joseph over his brothers. He called him to do something. And God called David over his brothers. And it's always down to the father's love, okay? Not blaming God. That's a whole different story. I don't have time to dive into that deal, okay? So start early by letting them all know that you love them all equally. And you have to work at this. Some of your kids are going to need more time with you, and some are going to need less. The point is, you got to parent them individually. You have to parent them individually. You got to do some things. You got to parent them all the same in some ways, but different in other ways with all the kids. They're all different. They need unique attention and unique approaches, but they all need some same things. Like the family rules apply to everybody, but each kid needs to be addressed a little bit differently based on what they need, okay? For example, if you have a daughter who is high touch and likes to hug, you dads, moms, you should be hugging her all the time, loving her, giving that affection so she doesn't someday seek it other places, you know? I mean, that's just a generic example. But the idea is just parent them all individually so they all are connected with your individual love. You've heard of that book, The 5 Love Languages? It's about a marriage relationship, okay? About a marriage relationship. The 5 different languages in which, like a husband and spouse, a husband and wife experience love. right? And they're different. And you got to find out the other person's love language so you can speak that language. One of them is gifts. If your wife likes gifts, then give her gifts. I mean, she sounds expensive, but there you go. Or if your husband likes affection, then give him affection. But it's always different. I think the same principle applies to kids. You've got to figure out what's their love language. It won't be the same as a parent or spouse. Maybe some similarities, but they're going to have a way in which they understand love, and it's probably going to be different from your siblings. And so if you're always giving them love in a way that makes sense to their brother, but not them, they're going to think you love the brother more. And it's going to be an accident. So you got to find what is the way they like to experience love. Is it doing a project together? Is it watching a movie together? Is it doing something together? Is it building something together? Whatever the thing may be, but spending time together. Love them individually, because comparison is also a problem. So don't ever do the thing. Can't you be more like your brother? That just fuels, that's gasoline on this fire. Don't do that. Don't do that. Your kids are fearfully and wonderfully and uniquely made. Learn to parent them individually. That's something to help right there. Because when they're secure in their love from you, they're far less likely to fight for a position of love in your life. Okay? And they won't care who gets what pizza plate. It's a funny story. Last question, and we'll do it quick. I want to raise a family that likes each other and wants to come home as adults. Absolutely. This was what Erica always said. Says, what's the best way to create the environment now so my husband and I can reap the benefits later? I remember Erica always talking about this, that she wanted, when our kids grew up, that they would want to spend time with each other and us. And you know what? They do. And it's awesome, okay? I think you just need to make sure. I mean, there's a million things we can talk about this, and probably some of the stuff I said earlier will all factor into that. As you need to make sure your home is the most joyful and safe place they know. You need to do that, full of grace and laughter and forgiveness. It needs to be a place that represents the kingdom of God. It won't be perfect, but it's a place where people are forgiven quickly, and they're loved individually, and they're cherished, and they're sheltered. And I think even most importantly, the safest home for anybody is a home where the father, specifically the father, loves Jesus. And that permeates the home. And so when you have a home that everybody associates with a wonderful, loving, safe environment, it's most likely to foster, when they get older, people want to come home. They want to connect with these people, okay? It's difficult. It's difficult because some families have a prodigal that goes their own way, and you don't have any, necessarily control over that. But the thing you can have control over is when they're growing up, to create a place that's safe and joyful and Christ-filled and permeates with hope and love. And then they make the association of all those wonderful things with their family. And then they will be in those relationships for the rest of their life. And that's what you want. Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast today. Again, if you liked it, hope you did, share it or like it or give me a review, especially if you're on iTunes or Amazon. Leave a review there, a good review. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything, but leave a good review there. Or if you're on YouTube, hit a comment down there, like it, hit a comment, give me something good. It helps to get the algorithms out, because I'm hoping this is good stuff to share, and we want other people to hear it. Thanks for watching today. Have a wonderful day.
We'll be back next Wednesday to share more about faith and culture with Pastor Dave.